Hello, the first part of my video here will show a short clip, about 20 to 30 seconds, of myself performing the water filtration of Earth. So here it is, and take a look. Alright, so we have the dirty water here in the container on the left, and as it is poured into Earth's top layer here, represented as the cheesecloth, each material in the successive layers beneath here is going to be filtrated out. And then at the bottom here, you'll see as the water is dripping, you have a clear water source. I thought it was engaging for students to allow them to understand how our knowledge of science is developed. It piqued my own curiosity to construct a proper water filtration system, so allowed myself to be creative and innovative through this process. Probably the biggest impact, it's not just another project. I mean, it kind of allows us to see how the real world works, how things are, capable of, supporting us in our everyday lives. And like it says, it resembles the real world application that students can take with them and apply to everyday life. So in terms of assessing this activity, it's broken down into three areas. The first one is the investigative practices. So I kind of have them circled based off of their levels there. So for asking questions, I put it between the emergent and the proficient area because it's a mixture of both teacher-led questions such as, asking them, can you filter the water? But it's also driven by student questions where students can ask themselves, well, what if we poured the water through the gravel first to catch the big stuff, then the charcoal, then the sand? So it's kind of just allowing them to emerge from what they understand, but also understand that they can also take control of it. In terms of planning and carrying out the investigations, I put it in the proficient level. I said that because students are given the materials to go through the trial and error period where they're making their own decisions. So they kind of see what's happening at their own pace. And lastly, using mathematics and computational thinking, I put it between emergent and proficient because the thought process had to be drawn out to make sure that the filtration system would work. So there's not, an ample amount of math going on, but it still allows them to answer the scientific questions. In terms of sense-making practices, there's three. The first one is analyzing and interpreting data. I put that in the proficient level because students are at the center of their learning and they are analyzing their work as the work goes through each phase. They have to ask themselves questions about what is working and what is not working in this case. In terms of constructing responses, I put that again between the emergent and the proficient level because it gives them a mixture of ideas that allows them to provide some robust explanations for themselves, but they also have to explain it in their own words too. And in terms of developing and using models, I put it in the emergent level because they have to describe the filtration system that seems separate from the idea of what goes on in our own world as water is actually filtered. So it's not kind of tied in at the beginning, but it's getting to where it needs to be a real world application. And lastly but not least is the critiquing practices. We have two of them. You have the engaging in argument from evidence. So I put that in the emergent area as students are going to have their input, but a lot of it seemed to be driven by teacher-led instructions at times. And lastly, obtaining, evaluating, and communicating information. I put that between the emergent and the proficient level there. That is because prior to this activity, students have had to have some sort of background knowledge before diving into the activity, which will help them support their own claims. But overall, I think it was a great activity. I really enjoyed it myself, and I think it's something that can definitely be worked upon for future lessons. Thanks, guys.